Hello everybody and welcome back to our regular subscribers. Thanks for subscribing, by the way. We're nearly up to 100 people now, so please click on that subscribe button, take us over the 100. Welcome along. Today's edition we're talking about dampness. Whose fault is it? Why is it? What can we do about it? Stand by. Hi everybody, so today we're here to talk about dampness. Whose fault is it? Is it the landlord's fault? Is it the tenant's fault? What can we do about it? This is what we're going to address today. First up, let's talk about where it's coming from and why it's there in the first place. Well, under the Landlord and Tenant Act, the landlord does have responsibility to repair the external structure. So we're talking about the roof, windows, penetrating or rising dampness. If you have any of those issues and you're sure it is one of those issues, then certainly the landlord should be looking to address it for you. However, condensation is normally the main bugbear and the main problem, and in the majority of cases these are things that you can address personally if you're a tenant. So here are a few little handy hints that might help you along the way. To give you some idea about the extent of the problem of condensation and mould, 37% of households across the UK, not just tenants, but across the UK, report some sort of condensation or mould issues. So it's important you know you're not alone. This is a very common problem. So what can we do about it? Number one, a lot of people tend to heat the areas that they live in and not heat other areas of the house. This is a recipe for disaster. And the reason is that the steam that we produce and the heat that we produce from our activities such as cooking, bathing, and indeed even breathing, believe it or not, actually migrate to the coldest walls in the house, particularly the north facing ones. It's actually better to have your heating on low throughout the house evenly than it is to have one room particularly hot and everything else shut down. That is a recipe for damp migrating to the colder walls in the house. So put your heating on, number one. Not necessarily high, it can be fairly low, but it has to be consistently through the whole house, not just in the one room. The second thing to look for is cross ventilation. Wherever possible, open windows, open doors, ventilate across the house. When I say cross ventilation, ideally, if you can open a window at the top of the house, at the front, and another one at the back, so that we get that nice through draft coming through, and that breeze will really help to cut down on condensation and mould issues. I know in the winter that's particularly difficult to do, but if you're not in the house and it's secure to do so, it really will help. You'll see the difference almost immediately if you do that. Third thing, when filling your bath, I mean, bathrooms are a huge issue of condensation and mould. One of the things that a landlord can do in many circumstances is fit an extractor fan, which aren't vastly expensive, and come on when the light comes on, extract for a period of time after the light goes off, and they can solve a lot of problems. They won't solve the problem in its entirety, but they can certainly help a great deal. So that's one thing. Second thing is, if you have neither of those things and you want to address the problem tenants, or indeed anyone else living at home there, simply open your window when you run your bath, or keep your door slightly open if you can do that. Those two things will really help. So think about that. Next thing is, if you're filling your bath, fill it with cold water first. That will cut down huge amounts of steam and will again assist in the problem itself. Finally, when drying clothes, big problem with the moisture is when you dry clothes in a room, especially if you put them over radiators, that will cause huge amounts of water. It's got to go somewhere, and it will probably go on your walls and cause mould and dampness. So if you're going to do that, our advice is, if you can, get a clothes horse or some sort of drying rack, put it over the bath, and then hang the clothes over there, not over a radiator. That will be a surefire way of getting further dampness. When cooking, in the kitchen's another source of a great deal of moisture. Make sure that you keep lids on saucepans when boiling water, extractors on again, or open a window. Now, on to removing the mould and dampness. You're going to need a few things, but they're not vastly difficult to get hold of. Number one, hot water. Number two, bleach. You want a 4:1 ratio of bleach to hot water. Get yourself a pair of marigolds, preferably a face mask and some goggles, and then you need to get yourself scrubbing where you see the black spot mould or fur. Now, there's no point getting half of it off. It will take elbow grease. Maybe get your partner to help too. You need to get down there and really give it a good scrubbing. If you leave any behind, that will just cause regrowth. So you need to get as much of it off as you can and get yourself down there and scrubbing away. And you will remove it eventually. You'll see it start to go immediately, and then the last bits are harder to get rid of. Now, having done that, the next thing to do, if you can, is to get some antifungal or mould removing or restricting paint And another good tip here, very cheap way around the problem, is any oil-based paint will do virtually the same thing. We're talking gloss or undercoat. The oil in those paints will restrict any dampness coming through from the wall itself. So they're things that you can do in practical ways, but tenants, rest assured you're not alone here. Many homeowners have the same problems, and there are practical things here that you can do. So make sure you try all of the above before contacting your agent or landlord or thinking you've got a bigger problem than maybe you have. We hope this helps. Speak to you soon. Take care.